And this is how we roll around here on The Garden Life. I talk and somebody else does the work, right, Bruce?
That's right.
It's my favorite way to get things done. As promised, we are getting lots of things done this week. It has been already a really blockbuster of a week. We just shot a video with my friend Jim Putnam. A lot of you were right in guessing who was going to be here. What was so ironic is I was in North Carolina while he was here, and he lives in Raleigh and I live in Oklahoma City, so it was kind of a fun thing. So I hope you enjoy the video that is up ahead. We had so much fun. We are great pals, so it was really fun to have him here, and we talked about that kind of stuff. And I also told you that, as promised, the windows were getting painted this week. Now, Bruce just told me it's a good thing he liked me so much. Right, Bruce?
That's exactly right.
We don't have Bruce mic'd for fear of what he might really say under his breath. But Bruce and we have worked together for many years. Gosh, it would age us, Bruce, if I talked about how long you have painted for me and with me, and we would exchange lawn care tips because Bruce took care of all of the ball fields and everything, and we would both agonize and express our frustrations over trying to get grass to grow in Oklahoma. But he is doing a great job, and he is going to paint the outside of the casement windows in this, what we are calling Water Cottage gray. And then he will paint the inside, and this is probably the last major thing that I really have been anxious to get done. The solo fire pit arrived, and I'll be putting that together, and so lots of just different things are going on out here. It's kind of chaotic because we've got things moved around. Bruce, if I forget to tell you off camera, I'll tell you now on camera that some of these doors and other things over here need a little touch-up.
I saw that.
You saw that? That's the nice thing. We have an unspoken language. I don't have to tell Bruce anything. He will notice it, and he's got my back. So I appreciate the heck out of that. So that is what is going on here. We'll take a little break, and then when we jump back in, you will get to see my interview, my not necessarily an interview, let's just say an exchange with Jim. He was here. See the whole thing today, and then we also did something that will go up on his channel, so make sure that you hop over to his channel, and we'll talk a little bit more. Well, yeah, it's completely different, so we'll talk a little bit more about that next Sunday, but for now, enjoy. Well, I have welcomed a lot of people to the cottage on the hill, but I've got a special guest here today, an old buddy, Jim Putnam from HortTube. Welcome to my cottage in Oklahoma.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really exciting. This has been something we've talked about for a long time. We've talked about it for a long time.
So a little background. How long have we known each other? Gosh.
We were at an event in Baltimore many years ago.
Yes, many years ago.
We spoke back to back.
But our connection is Southern Living Plant Collection.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're both very enthusiastic about them, obviously.
Right.
But
right.
I think the fun thing about you and I is that I come to everything from a design perspective.
You do. Yeah.
And you come to everything far more knowledgeably than I from a horticultural perspective, and so I think we've worked together kind of in tandem.
Yeah, sure. You teach them where to put it, and I teach them how to not kill it, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully, anyway, right?
Okay, so the irony of this is we were talking about when we could coordinate our schedules.
Yes.
And you were saying, I'm going to be in Oklahoma on such and such a date. And I said, well, I'm going to be where you live in North Carolina on such and such a day. So like those two little planes in a movie that pass each other, that was us. And I have to say, I always, when I come back from these kind of things, when I come back from the Southeast, I have kind of a tree hangover because it's so gorgeous.
Right, yeah. It's a little easier to garden. it's a little easier to garden.
A little?
Yeah, over on my side of the mountains than it is on this side of the mountains.
Yes,
Yeah,
but nevertheless, I think we gotta love the one we're with. We work with where we live and what we can do. So I want to walk around a little bit, and I want to pick your brain because my challenges in Oklahoma are different than your challenges in North Carolina.
For sure.
And some of the issues that I have, you might lend your expertise and maybe help those of us who live out on the prairie do some things.
Okay, all right.
So we're going to talk a little bit later about some of our favorite Southern living plants and the ones that, for me, and another video that we're going to do that have performed really, really well. But I have found that in general, I would say, obviously, no matter what I plant, for us here in Oklahoma, the hardest thing is getting things established.
Right. So, you know, this was kind of an interesting thing when you brought this up. So for us, over in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I'm at, we're in a similar zone. I mean, you're going to get that much colder than us. When we put something in the ground in a kind of a prepped, normal space, we get things established rather quickly. But we'd also have wooded spaces where we might have root competition, or we have slopes or that kind of thing. So we do have, you will run into spaces where it takes longer to get things, you know, established.
Right.
That word is kind of one of those things that people, when they think of established, I think they mean that, like, it's never going to require maintenance again. That's not true.
Right. No.
But
absolutely.
But less thinking about it.
Less.
But out here, it seems like all of your spaces are those spaces.
Thank you for that. Thank you for acknowledging.
Right.
Yeah, I think in Oklahoma I have what I call my garden manifesto. And in my garden manifesto is that in Oklahoma there's only 2 seasons. There's before the heat and there's after the heat.
Right.
But increasingly for us, there's before the cold and after the cold too, because our extremes have gotten so much more extreme. Is that true where you are?
Yeah, but I think we're so buffered by the mountains.
Yeah.
We're so buffered by the mountains that we just don't you know, everything's moderated. So where I was on the Tennessee side during that December 23rd freeze, they lost so many leafy evergreens with the wind blowing, and then by the time it goes over Appalachia, you know, over the mountains, it was moderated, and it was only 13 for a low, where it was 0 on the other side.
Oh gosh.
So that, you know, I mean, that's that moderating factor that we have on our side.
Well, here, let's see, year before last, I think it was, Stuart, we had a minus 18.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's
a minus 18, and the rest, and of course the rest of the winter, it had been fairly moderate. And then we fall off a cliff, and we had minus 18, and I lost things that you would never lose. Like I lost a 60-year-old euonymus hedge.
Right.
I mean, that just doesn't happen.
Right.
And then the following summer, it got up to 115. And so it's those extremes. So for us, getting things established is kind of a twofer. It's both for winter and summer.
Right.
So we plant mostly in fall. I think for us, it's much better to plant in fall, though.
Your like leafy evergreens, like azaleas and things, probably fall might not be the best time, having them take the first winter, or do you think it's the...
Honestly, I just think we just kind of have to do what we can. I mean, if your window of time, like for example, you know that I came from my other house where I'd been for forever, and I moved here, and I've only been here since last December.
It's incredible how much you've done.
It was.
If you haven't followed, I followed along with it enough to know that this really changed radically. This was just turf.
Yeah, it was just turf,
Yeah.
and you know, you and I don't know if you're much of a turf guy. I would much rather spend my time gardening on this kind of stuff than on that kind of, you know.
I always say I'm turf with a purpose.
Yes.
So if I had young kids and I needed a flat space, or if I wanted to chip, you know, golf balls, or I wanted to, but I'm not. My thing with turf is, why does it exist?
What's its intent?
If it exists for a reason, heck yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to use. Okay, we need to steal that turf with a purpose. I'm going to add that to my garden manifesto. Because for me, for me, it is. I look at everything through a design lens, and so for me, that especially in the spring, when, you know, all the tulips and the azaleas and everything, there's this big show. It's gorgeous, but it wouldn't be anything if there wasn't a beautiful canvas upon which it could play.
Right.
So the little bit of green kind of gives your eye a place to rest.
Right, it does, and then edges allow you to bring in different heights and different things. More edges. I always talk about edges. You know, if you don't have, you know, creating edges, bringing beds away from the house.
Yes.
You know, the more of those lines you have, the more different size things you can use.
Yes, and it gives definition, and I think it gives dimension, and it gives point of view. It gives a point of view, and it kind of tells your eye where to go.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
And if you had no lawn at all, I don't think it would do that as well.
Right.
So any other pointers? I always tell people, if you're trying to get something established, if it tells you, you know, the standard in our industry is 2.5 times the size of the root ball.
Right.
I say, if you could do it 10 times the size.
Right. Oh, you mean for digging the hole?
For digging the hole,
gotcha,
yeah,
gotcha,
10 times.
Gotcha. Yeah, you know, a couple of thoughts on getting things established in a tough situation would be, number one, you really just have to, you got to stay on top of it all the time, because you can't let things go backwards. Like, I can let something potentially get winter damaged, potentially get dry a little bit, and my more moderated weather will allow it to recover. Once you start on the process of something going downhill,
it's a goner.
It's going to be very, very difficult. So you need to be monitoring more frequently if you're in extreme heat, extreme sun, you know, that kind of thing. One other thing that I think from a design perspective that you have going here that we did in Raleigh as well is plant tighter than you think.
Yes.
And use some annuals initially. Even if you're going to plant shrubs 3 to 4 feet apart, like the tag said to do.
Yes.
Fill in those gaps temporarily with annuals, perennials.
No, you're so right.
Those things. And shade the roots of these plants.
Yes.
Because they're not used to being out in the world where they're going to get slammed by the sun from all angles.
Exactly.
Right.
And so it's kind of a living mulch thing.
Yes, right.
And so you just, you know, some people say, oh, you're planting so close together, it doesn't give that plant a chance to get established. There's too much root competition. Well, no, I am just trying to keep those roots shaded. So that is the bet. That is such a good tip. And the other thing is I want interest while things are growing.
That's right. And you're going to lose, you know, all these annuals that you're going to do initially, you're going to do less and less each year.
Yes.
Shrubs and trees and all those things fill in.
Yes.
And the garden's going to change.
Yeah. If you had been here, and you know, as gardeners, we always say, oh, you should have been here. You should have been here 2 months ago. Right. You should have been here 2 months ago. Because if you'd come, you know, closer to the summer, I had just masses of cleome and celosia, and the agapanthus was in bloom, and it was spectacular, but then it kind of changes over. It changes, but it changes over time. And I think that's something, you know, it's something else. You do have to give things a chance. And the other thing is, and I would say this is so important here in Oklahoma, is as it starts that downhill slide and you see it's probably not going to make it, and it's only going to get hotter in the summer, then you just have to really, I do my 3 strikes and you're out thing.
Right.
So if you know, I'm going to try you 3 different places.
Right. I give plants a chance. You know, you get the hard cut back maybe.
Yeah.
You get the move to another spot. But then I said, like I said to you before we started, if 2 or 3 things in your garden are taking up 50% of your gardening time and you're stressing about them constantly, they need to go.
They need
Just
to
let them go.
From the words of the expert.
Right. Let them go, okay?
Yeah.
Let them go because all of a sudden that stress is gone. That thing is freed up. I'll get questions, these panicked all cap questions or something like that about what should I do? I would say that if you've gotten to the point where you need to do it in all caps, it needs to leave your garden.
I know.
If that's where your stress has gotten to.
That's where your stress has gotten. Well, and for me, I was telling you this. I look at it as a gardening romance. If I'm going to make a commitment to you, you have to return that commitment.
Yeah, that's right. There
you go.
You
have to return that commitment.
Right.
If I'm putting a lot more into this relationship than you, then you're out of here.
Yes, if I'm choosing the 5 chemicals I'm going to combat this thing with for the next 5 years. No, it's not going to be part of my life.
It should not be that hard for us to get along. And if it is, then I have just made a poor choice in my mate.
Yeah.
And so,
That's right.
and so I think you need to look at it. You need to look at it that way. Now let's talk a little bit, and we're kind of getting in the weeds a little bit, but this is important stuff because I think so often we read, oh, you know, it will be fine once it gets established.
Right.
So let's define what getting it established means for you, but also for me.
Yeah, I think for me it means that I can take a vacation. Probably, you know what I mean? Like I can water it before I leave.
You get to take vacations.
Right. Like I can leave for a week and not stress about that thing. That to me is established. You're still going to have to do. So I always say, okay, so because I say something is drought tolerant, like you've got some abelia up here. Abelia we would consider very drought tolerant plant. But if I decided next year it was established, but then it was 105 for 3 weeks and it didn't rain and it just looked kind of raggedy and rough, is that established? I mean, it still needs, right? It's not going to live its best life with you completely ignoring it forever.
Yeah.
So established means I can leave and not stress about it. But when I get back, I still want to check it.
Yeah.
I still want to maybe put something into it, you know, to get I still want the best out of it.
Well, and from a design standpoint, you know, I work with so many different people who will design their yard, and then it's not the same as interior decor. You know, you can put a candlestick on a mantle and it's there into perpetuity until you move it. And it requires, other than dusting, no additional care. But if you put a plant into a spot to serve as a very particular design element, and it kind of, you know, and it gets semi-established, that doesn't mean it doesn't require constant observation and constantly checking your 10-day weather forecast to see what lies ahead so you can mulch it accordingly or whatever. And as you're getting plants established, they need that much more mulch. They need that much more watering at the drip zone.
Well, they really, you know, keeping the ground covered, and that was part of that thing about the living mulch is also other mulch too. Is, you know, having the ground covered is the natural state with which, and I see, you know, frequently things planted and they go, I mulched last year or I mulched 2 years ago. Do I need to mulch again? Yeah, the mulch is part of the fertilizer. It's part of the whole system. It's part of the weed control. It's part of, you know, it's literally probably the most important thing is keep the ground covered.
And it's part of the gardening cycle. I mean, you know, every spring, do I need to mulch again? Do you assess it? Okay, so from a design perspective, I'm all about what I call signature garden touches. So somebody could drive by and without knowing that I had moved here, they would say, oh, that's Linda Votter's garden. Because I have certain things. And one of my signature garden touches is I have a unique way that I mulch things. And that is when I put down organic mulch, I include in it an inorganic element. So I mix pea gravel in.
Yes, I've seen it.
With all of my mulch, partly because I like the way it looks. You know, and it adds texture and things, but also because it won't break down. And if it does work its way down into the soil, that's all the better for me because that might break up my clay and give me a little bit more aeration underneath.
So your garden is really all these natural materials are, you know, the combination of the brick and the pea gravel and the mulch and all those things. I love mixtures of natural materials. I like paths that change from, you know, somebody wants a single solution to a path. And I'm like, well, why isn't bricks work for a little while and then slate works for a little while and then stone work for a little while, and just adding those changes, those subtle changes, you know, as you go.
And it creates great texture. And it makes it so much more indigenous to you know, you use what kind of materials would be prevalent in your area. So for me, pine straw not so much, but for you probably so.
Yeah, we can use it. We can use it. I typically will just use hardwood mulch as my go-to if I can get it. I actually want my mulch to break down. Because my mulch breaking down is what's feeding the plants. It is the natural process with how things are supposed to work.
And I want some of it to break down and some of it to, you know, to not break down. And for
Right.
me, it does deter squirrels a little bit to
Right.
have,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
to have that
fight.
kind
We're
of
going to
stuff.
fight squirrels. Squirrel fighting is gardening. That's we should need that T-shirt right there.
Yeah.
Gardening is squirrel fighting.
Yes,
That's,
yeah, well, yes, okay, we'll add that to the manifesto too.
right, yeah, right.
And here in Oklahoma, we'll kind of end on this note, and thank you so much, by the way. So here in Oklahoma, it is, what I say is, to garden is to suffer. To garden is
Right.
is to suffer.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's definitely that's. I don't even know how to respond
I
to
know.
gardening. Yeah. Right.
But it's true. If you're going to take on gardening, you have to have a certain pioneer spirit here. You have to know that you will fail more often than not, and you have to have a good sense of humor.
Yeah. But it allows you to change it. Allows you to
Right.
redesign it frequently. The weather helps you redesign it.
Yes. Leslie Harris, you know Leslie? Yeah, she says every dead plant is an opportunity.
Yeah, right.
And
There you go.
yes, and to a certain extent it is, but I think you would agree with me that thanks to Southern Living, we have fewer opportunities.
Yeah,
Southern Living
yeah.
plants,
Well,
we
we
have fewer opportunities than we would otherwise.
Yeah. New genetics. I mean, there's definitely
Yes.
a lot of things are being solved. A lot of our invasive issues, a lot of our lots of things are being solved through
Right.
genetics and,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and plant breeding, and this being long trialing. And we're part of it. Your garden is part of the trialing, right?
Yes, we're part. I'm really trialing that better boxwood right now.
Yes. Right,
Yes, and so excited about that. But one other thing, since you and I both have followers literally around the world, I would say this, and that is a lot of plant collections that supposedly, well, like Southern Living plants that are supposedly bred to take the heat and things, increasingly because of climate change, they're moving farther north.
Right.
And so I've been contacted by lots of people
Right.
farther north who say, oh no, let people know that these plants can work
Right,
in other zones and in other areas besides just the South, because it's really, really true.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And here you go, because I know you will ask, which is one of the reasons I do it. Here is my outfit of the day, and all of the links are in the description box below under outfit of the day. So my earrings, I actually bought these in Singapore, so no link here, but I did just get this little puffer vest, and I love it. Just got it yesterday and donned it immediately because it's just I don't know, it's just how I roll. So I will put a link to it. I've got a shacket on underneath. Let me expose my shacket. There we go. Can I do that? Yeah, let me expose my shacket. Can I do that without messing up my mic? Okay, so this is felt, because this is the kind of weather now where you want to be both warm and you want to be able to take off layers if you can. My britches are skinny leg jeans from Banana Republic. And then, boy, we have showed these boots many, many times, Stuart. These are my Red Hunter boots. You can see one of the buckles is even broken. I've had them for so long. Got these off of eBay many years ago. It may be time for me to almost invest in a new pair, but these are much loved, and I will put a link to these below. Have I forgotten anything? I'm just kind of... Actually, this is just the traditional band that it comes with, because I'm still waiting to get the links taken out of my other band. Been a little bit occupied, haven't had the time to do that. So there you go. There is your outfit of the day, and all the links are in the description box below.